I was broke. I distinctly remember having the same $2 or $3 in my backpack and being scared to spend it.
Who are you most excited about, or who's done really well in the preseason so far?
If I had to point to one guy, and I'll probably get in trouble with other guys for this, we're really trying to take on a mentality, and you guys are the first people I'm telling publicly about this. The biggest challenge we have, Grace, is the two guys that just walked out of our building.
Is that circled on the calendar?
Today's practice is circled on the calendar. Nobody wants to win more than us. I can promise you that.
If you're a Marquette fan excited for this upcoming season, this is a great episode for you. We just got to spend over an hour with head coach Shaka Smart and covered a lot of ground. We talked briefly on his rise to the head coaching job at Marquette, and then we talked a lot about this upcoming season, which player he's most excited about, expectations for the upcoming year. Also touched on last year's Sweet 16 run and the loss to NC State, how to move on from that, and how to fill the void being left by Oso and Kolek, who both got drafted in the first 40 picks of the NBA draft. So a lot of good stuff coming. We also got into some fan-submitted questions and got to know Shaka a little bit on a personal level. Thanks again for tuning into Milwaukee Uncut. Just a reminder that this show is produced in the heart of Walker's Point at Storymark Studios, presented by Nicolay Law, the Midwest law firm, and Three Sheeps Brewing, the beer Wisconsin drinks. Please subscribe if you have not already, and thanks again for tuning in.
My first job, I went to a place called California University of Pennsylvania. It was, at that time, a one-stoplight town south of Pittsburgh, and I loved it. My starting lineup was all older than me, and I got a crash course in coaching. I had no idea what coaching was about when I was a player. I thought it was just the games and practice. I learned all the ins and outs behind, the preparation, the recruiting, the scouting, player development, and so that was a lot of fun. Then I went to Dayton.
Okay. Then I was listening to an interview where I believe you said you signed a $24,000 a year deal, or that's what you were making, and you felt like you were rich because you could eat Chipotle instead of Subway.
That's exactly right. I graduated from Subway every single day to being able to go to a friend of mine who's on the staff with me at Dayton. We would go to alternate between Chipotle and I forget the name of the sub shop, but it was much better. It was a big step in the right direction. When I was at Cal PA, my first year I made $90 every 2 weeks. And then my second year I made double that, so I felt like I was rich. I lived in an apartment that cost $150 a month. So you can imagine how nasty that was. There were drug deals down the hall. There was definitely some unsavory characters around that building. But you know what? I didn't spend much time there because I was really engrossed in coaching. And so it was fine.
Okay, and so then obviously you signed a way different contract at VCU. You're an 11 seed, playing your playing game, first ever 11 seed to go to the Final Four. You were only 34. What was that whole transition like? And then getting to the Final Four, how did that feel?
It felt great. I think from the standpoint of team sports, that was the most enjoyable stretch of time, that I've been a part of, that NCAA tournament. And winning obviously makes it fun, but I think it's also about the guys that you're with and overcoming maybe obstacles or challenges that other people don't think you can overcome. VCU was really a fortunate spot for me because I was coming from University of Florida. I worked for Billy Donovan there. He was like my coaching idol. I really didn't want to leave. But VCU was such a great place just to show you how coaching works. Our business is pretty crazy in a lot of ways. They brought me up there on a job interview, and I had interviewed with the athletic director in Gainesville, and he said, hey, we'd like for you and your wife to come up to Richmond, and it'll be half interview, and then it'll be kind of half you getting to know the place. Well, when I got off the plane, on my connecting flight, connected in Charlotte to fly from Gainesville to Richmond, my phone blew up when I turned it back on, and I had about 200 text messages saying congratulations on VCU job. So I never really had a chance to even accept or turn down the job. But that's how crazy Our profession is silly. It's like guys make, life-changing decisions, and schools, make decisions with major implications in like 48 hours, with certainly incomplete information. But I guess with all the different factors involved, that's what makes sense.
Yeah. And so now you've kind of like shifted your mindset to coaching here at Marquette, and we're going to talk Marquette basketball a ton. So Kam returned this year. You have 0 players that went into the transfer portal. What does that say about Marquette basketball, the culture, your coaching?
Well, I think it says that our guys enjoy being around each other first and foremost. I've learned that the relationships that the players have with each other, those are the strongest and most important relationships in the program. I always used to think it was the relationship with the coach, because that's what it was for me personally. But I've learned over the years that the way Kam feels about Stevie, the way Stevie feels about Job, the way Job feels about Kam Brown, the way Kam Brown feels about Ben Gold, the way Ben Gold feels about Chase Ross, so on and so forth. It's what creates the experience that guys have here, and the experience they have is what keeps them here. And our goal is, we believe that the guys, their togetherness and the bond that they have is one that we hope that they want to continue all the way up until it's time to go on to even bigger things in college basketball, like Tyler and Oso are.
Mm-hmm.
Can you touch on your culture document and how that came about and what is in there?
Well, it's long, so I probably don't have time to tell you everything that's in there. How it came about was, I've always been interested in different teams' cultures, and I've always enjoyed learning from other coaches about what they emphasize. But that word gets thrown around a lot, and sometimes it's not defined. And so it can be this nebulous thing that you kind of know what it is, but it's hard to describe. And I feel like with young people particularly, and even with adults, it's very important to be able to explain what you mean and be able to put your finger on what you're trying to encourage. Culture is something that when it's bad and when it's good. Like, you can feel it. And when you want to be a part of it, and when you don't want to be a part of it. And that's the culture of a team. That's the culture of a university. That's the culture of a podcast. That's the culture of anything, any organization. So, my worst year in coaching as a head coach was 2016-17. It's the only year that I've been a head coach and we've had a losing record. And it was it wasn't even close. It was definitely a losing record. It was a really humbling year, a hard year. I can name a lot of emotions that I went through that year. But one of the silver linings of it was I came to realize, probably about a third of the way through the year, that our culture wasn't where I wanted it to be, and that's my responsibility as a head coach. And so I started to, in my journal, write out the beginnings of what became our culture doc. I changed our core values. We had 5 core values at that time. I completely changed them. Not that I didn't care about the old ones, because that had been really good for us at VCU, and those, they're characteristics that do really matter. But I thought we needed to get even more basic with what we care about most. And then I, slowly but surely built out 7 principles under each one of the core values. So our culture doc, it includes a definition of what culture is, how we act, interact, and respond. Our 3 core values, actually prior to that, our mission, which is to create and sustain championship level success. Our 3 core values, which are relationships, growth, and victory. And then 7 principles under each of our core values, so 21 total principles. So it's 26 pages. We actually just updated it last month, every August. Ben Retzloff on our staff, who does an awesome job with graphics and strategy, he helps me update the culture doc it's important. The visual part of it is important to me. I want our guys to see themselves in the culture doc. So we update the pictures. And then we spend a lot of time working on how we can best bring it to life.
And 2,000 players entered the transfer portal, just D1 hoops alone this year, 0 from Marquette. As Grace said, you have a guy like Kam who probably could have gone to the draft pretty easily coming back. Do you credit that to the culture?
Well, I think 3 things. I always explain this to our staff, and we talk about this a lot in staff meetings and try to stay on top of it. 3 things go into, whether someone does or doesn't want to be, part of your organization. I think this applies to our team, but it applies to any organization. Number 1, relationships. We want to be around who we want to be around, and we don't want to be around who we don't want to be around. I think we all in our lives can remember a time where we finally kind of put our foot in the ground and we said, I don't want to be around that guy anymore. Or another time when, we were attracted to a place because I like that person. I want to spend time around him or her. So the relationships that our guys have with each other, and then beyond our players, our staff, our support staff has with our guys, hopefully that's the number 1 driver to them continuing to want to be at Marquette. And it goes beyond just our building, the relationship with fellow students, relationship with faculty, other folks that make up the Marquette community and the Milwaukee community. The second factor is the experience that the guys have. And part of that experience is absolutely winning or losing. There's no doubt. I mean, if you look at those 2,000 transfers, and if you said, okay, how many of those guys came from programs that were in the top 5% in the country in terms of winning percentage? I would guess it's very, very few. There's some, but it's very few. Well, how many guys transferred from places that are in the bottom half of the country in terms of winning percentage? A lot. Because when you lose, it doesn't feel good. And when it doesn't feel good, human nature is to want to go somewhere else or do something else. Now, the most mature people are able to kind of look in the mirror and say, okay, what do I need to do to change that? But remember, we're dealing with people at 18 to 22 years old. I don't know how you guys were at that age, but I wasn't particularly mature. And then the third factor that impacts, guys' desire to come back or not is probably the most general category I just call pragmatics. Playing time. Obviously, I think out of those 2,000 transfers, there's a good chunk of those guys that probably transferred because they wanted more playing time or they wanted a better role. They wanted a different situation in terms of their basketball role. NIL nowadays certainly is a factor. You mentioned Kam. He could have transferred somewhere else and gotten a lot more money in NIL than he gets at Marquette. And I think that's a testament to the way that he feels about the relationships and about the experience that he has at Marquette, that he stayed. But absolutely what's changed really even in the last 3 years is that's a factor now. And you have a lot of guys going to different places because financially they can alter their lives. Certainly can't hold that against them.
Before moving on to this season, which we're excited to talk about, I do want to touch on last season. It was a great season, an exciting one. First time Marquette's made the Sweet 16 in over a decade. Obviously ended on and you guys made the Big East Finals without TK, and that run ended on a tough note with the exit to NC State on what was, I would say, a pretty fluky shooting night just from a fan perspective. What was that moment like for that kind of season to end that way? And as a leader, what do you say to those guys in the locker room after?
It's tough. It's always tough when you end the season, even if you end on a win, because, and this may be different for fans than it is for players or coaches, but a big part of what we enjoy during the season is the preparation and the journey leading up to the games and the process that goes into preparing for the games and traveling to the games and everything that goes into it, and then competing in the game. And so there's an excitement and there's a meaning that we find from that. And when the season ends, whether it's after a devastating loss like that NC State game, or even after a win, there's a mini depression that sets in for a little while, because it's like, we don't have another game. What are we going to do tomorrow? We don't have practice. And then you adjust and you start working towards what's next, and you come to a place of acceptance with what is. But yeah, that was absolutely a challenging game for us. I think Marquette is such a special place that cares so much about basketball. So, you know, you share these experiences when you play in the NCAA tournament, or you play in the Big East tournament, or you win the regular season with all your fans. And part of that is a shared devastation after a loss, after a tough loss like the NC State game. Now, they were on a magic carpet ride, I think, of winning, I don't know, something like 9 straight games if you combine the ACC tournament with the NCAA tournament. And they were truly, you could feel it. You know, I'm a big believer in like the energy in the air and the spiritual component of where a team is. They had it. And then I remember turning on the TV several days later when they took the court to play Purdue in the national semifinals in the Final Four. And I watched about 5 minutes and I said, they don't got it. You know, and that can happen in the NCAA tournament from week to week. But they didn't have that same aura, spirit, energy, Shakti, whatever you want to call it. But they did on the night when we played them. And a lot of times we focus on our own team, which we should, because that's where we have an element of control. But the other team's trying to win too. And they certainly presented a lot of challenges on that night. Wasn't our best game. You know, I think 2 years in a row for us, and this is an awesome challenge, you know, for me as a coach, for our staff, for the older guys on our team that have been part of these games. Michigan State 2 years ago, NC State last year. I think we're impacted by, you know, the moment, the challenges, not being able to come together enough and multiply each other enough to overcome the collective challenges we were facing. And some of that being impacted by different components of the moment, you know, whether it's tough shooting, whether it's, you know, other factors that you either do or don't overcome in a game like that. So it's a great learning experience for the guys that are on our team that are seniors and juniors that have been a part of those 2 games, but have also been a part of 56 wins in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. You talk a lot about acceptance. How has that changed for you over the years? Are you able to accept things sooner and better than you would have in the past and move forward?
Sometimes. I hope so. I mean, that's really the shift that has occurred for me in my life is because of some of the challenges that I've gone through, and you know, just having to learn to you know, be my best in circumstances that maybe are not ideal, or, you know, what you would draw up, is, you know, coming to understand that life pretty much comes down to awareness and acceptance. And then if you have those 2 things, the third A would be action. You know, we're not sitting on top of a mountain, you know, meditating. You know, we're living our lives, and we're trying, in our case, to move these guys forward and, you know, help Marquette basketball be the best it can be, and help our guys, you know, go on to do even bigger and better things after Marquette. So, yeah, I've changed a lot in that regard. I used to think that, you know, you just kind of roll out of bed and go and, you're the best version of yourself just automatically. And I've learned the hard way that's not the case.
And I know you're ready for the action. Marquette fans are ready for the action. The players are getting ready as we speak. I think they had some sort of conditioning this morning, summer workouts, preseason is underway. Who are you most excited about, or who's done really well in the preseason so far?
Well, being a coach is kind of like being a parent.
Yeah.
When you pinpoint one person, it's like you're playing favorites. But make no mistake about it, coaches have favorites. And if you came in my office and you look up on the wall, there's a bunch of pictures of me and some of my favorite guys I ever coached. And the reason that those guys were some of the favorite guys I've ever coached is multifactorial. It's different for different guys. And I don't put any pictures up there of me and any current players for that reason. But to answer your question, who am I excited about? I'm excited about all of our guys. I'm excited about the biggest challenge we have, Grace, is the two guys that just walked out of our building, Oso and Tyler. Were absolute titans as people. Before you even talk about basketball, obviously they were terrific basketball players because they both got picked in the first 40 picks of the NBA draft. But who those guys were on a daily basis, the way they carried themselves, the way they affected other people, the maturity that they had was amongst the best that I've ever been around in college basketball. And so when you lose two people like that from your organization that are central to what you do, that creates quite a void. But a positive way to look at it is it's an exciting challenge. So I'm excited to see each of our guys collectively have the opportunity to step forward. There's no one guy that's going to all of a sudden become Oso or become Tyler. That's not realistic, nor would we want to ask them to do that. But I think each of them stepping forward in their own way and moving closer to their own upper limits, which I believe are like way, way up there, is really exciting. If I had to point to one guy, and again, I'll probably get in trouble with other guys for this, but in terms of comparing last year to this coming year and the jump that I believe that he's ready to make, it would be Chase Ross. He has been an absolute warrior. He's been a guy that has been so committed to Marquette and his team and his teammates. One of the biggest challenges with him is getting him to understand how good he can be. Believe it or not, when these guys play on the court, everyone sees them as these big, athletic, strong guys. But they have frailties too. And they have, doubts too. When he came into Marquette, he wasn't really sure if he could play here. And he didn't know if, maybe, why do these guys want me here? What's my role going to be? He ended up having a terrific freshman year and helping us in a major way win the Big East championship. Then his sophomore year, and I always tell sophomores, man, this is going to be an uneven year. It's going to be uneven. It's going to be major progress in a lot of ways from your freshman year. But then that other times it's going to feel like, man, like this is harder than I thought. I kind of thought I had this figured out, and now, there's all this learning left to do. And for him, it was an uneven year because of those reasons, but also because of injury. He separated his shoulder at Seton Hall in early January, and that was a really, really hard injury to come back from because it was his shooting arm, and he's a warrior. I mean, he's the one guy on our team that could step foot on a high major Division I college football field and function. No disrespect to our other guys. So he has that level of toughness, but that was a hard injury to come back from. And then some fans may or may not know this, but he was injured the whole last 6 weeks of the season with a high ankle sprain. And he was out there playing on a leg and a half. And, his game is obviously based on explosiveness and athleticism, and just couldn't move quite as well as he can when he's 100%. So I'm grateful for the toughness that he showed. There's a great backstory behind the win against Colorado to go to the Sweet 16. Tyler and Chase had kind of gotten into it after the Western Kentucky game. Tyler was the one guy on our team more than anyone else that was willing to challenge teammates and tell people the truth, and you don't see that as much nowadays because even I've never coached in the NBA, but even at the professional level, I think because it's so hard to play basketball at a high level, whether it's in the Big East or in the NBA, I think there's a real shared understanding amongst the players and shared appreciation for how hard it is. And sometimes maybe that keeps guys from, holding each other accountable the way that, coaches might want them to, or, players from a former era might say that they did. But Tyler, had a way of doing that with his teammates, and him and Chase got into it, and, he challenged Chase to be better and more than anything to believe more in himself and give more. And again, the context of it is Chase Ross is out there trying to be his best, knowing that he doesn't feel his best and he doesn't have his most athleticism because he's playing hurt. And he was phenomenal in that game against Colorado. The toughness that he displayed. He made a huge three late in the game. Colorado was making a run. I think it was either tied or we were up 1 or 2, so his three gave us a little bit of breathing room. And there's this picture that I love of Tyler and Chase embracing after the game. The most powerful pictures in our program are post-game hugs between the players. So this one is between Tyler and Chase, and just a shared appreciation. And man, I couldn't have done this without you, and you couldn't have done this without me. And we went and did something really hard, and we have this shared identity, and we love each other, and that's really what it's all about. So he's a guy that I'm really excited for him going into his junior year because I think he's got an opportunity to take a big step.
Is there anyone you're looking to fill that void that Tyler had from a leadership standpoint or a challenging the team standpoint?
Well, nobody's quite Tyler. I mean, he's an old school guy. Tyler's a guy that if you talk to players from, 20, 30 years ago, I heard Kevin Garnett say this recently in one of his podcasts. A lot of them say, well, these guys now, they couldn't function back then. Tyler could function. Tyler is a throwback. Tyler's a lot like Travis Diener. I mean, those two guys are cut from a very, very similar cloth. Travis will always have over Tyler that he went to the Final Four. But Tyler, obviously led us to some great team accomplishments, and he was Big East Player of the Year. I think he's got a chance to have a phenomenal professional career. But there's no one guy necessarily that can take Tyler's place in terms of that. We need to do it collectively. I will say that the best guy on our team at telling the truth to teammates and really being heard is Kam Jones. And that's why, we're just all hoping and praying that he gets back to full strength and back on the court as soon as he possibly can. Because he's one of those guys that there's no lying in him. He is so real and authentic, and when he speaks, everybody's locked in. So different than Tyler, he's not going to be as rough or challenging as Tyler, but he's not afraid to say what needs to be said. And I think once he gets back on the court, that becomes a lot easier because you're actually out there during wartime.
Okay, and so now everybody's going to ask you about expectations, but maybe we get to be kind of the first. I know there's always the expectation of going to another Final Four so that they can say that they did what Travis Senior or the other late greats did, but what expectations do you have for this team this season?
Well, there's expectations in terms of results, and then there's expectations in terms of process. So we try to focus most of the time on the process, obviously without being blind to results, because that's what we're here to do. We are here to win. We are here to help these guys play well and, become the best version of themselves. But if you get too obsessed with the results every day, then all of a sudden it can almost become an avoidance goal, like, we don't want to mess up. And I think that happens sometimes, to young people or even to adults, because we get so caught up in, what we have to do. Dwayne Wade came in our locker room when we played Villanova at home on Martin Luther King Day last year. And we had lost 2 consecutive games, which, we've been fortunate that hasn't happened a lot here. And he came in the locker room before the game and he told the team, hey, guys, this is a must-win. And I remember thinking, whenever people say that, well, what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to jump off the top of the building if we lose? Does that mean the season's canceled if we lose? Does that mean we have no chance to reach our goals if we lose? But what Dwayne Wade meant, and Dwayne Wade's one of the wisest people that I've ever been around, is he meant, and only people that have played or coached at a high level understand this, he meant this is a must. Do everything in your power, everything humanly possible to win. That's what he meant. And if you don't do that, then you're not what you say you are.
Yeah.
Now, what the guys heard was, this is a must win. And I actually watched that game. I was on the plane the other day, and I watched that game again. And the game was back and forth, and we ended up kind of pulling away late. We won by double figures, but it was a close game. In fact, there was a point where we were kind of teetering a little bit in the first half, and Zay Lowry was kind of like a unsung hero. He came in the game, he made 2 threes. And we went from being down 3 points to up 3 points, and then we went on a run and took a bigger lead. But expectations, I think can be good, but they also can be something that can paralyze you if you're not careful. So, hey, we're at Marquette. We want to compete for championships. Bo Ellis and the guys set a standard back in 1977 that we all are striving towards. Travis and D. Wade strive towards. Coach Crean's great teams, Buzz Williams' great teams strive towards. We know how hard that is because we've been in the same league as UConn, and we've competed against UConn. And they've set a standard in college basketball the last 2 years, and I'm grateful to be in the same league as them. There's nothing wrong with learning from teams like that. But we absolutely think we have a chance to have a terrific season. We've got a lot of growing to do. This is going to be a team more so than last year, where our team looks a lot different 6, 8, 10 weeks into the season than we do at the very start of the season. But that's exciting.
Let's get into some personal questions. You talk about your morning routine quite a bit. What is your morning routine right now? And around what time do you get up?
I get up whenever I wake up. I used to be.
That is a great answer. I get up when my eyes open.
Well, I'll tell you what.
No alarm.
I'll tell you what. I don't know how much you want to know about me, but
Everything. Come on.
Yeah. Let's go.
Like a lot of people, I've gone through like the evolution of night owl, morning person. I don't know that I'm either one of those, but when I was a kid and when I was a young adult, I needed an alarm for sure. And then as you get older, your mind gets more and more active and your mind wakes you up. So for me, probably this may in some way corresponded with becoming a head coach. I've had in the early mornings, like extreme anxiety that wakes me up. I'm talking about like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And I always, like, if you wake up at 3 in the morning, like, you really don't want to get up.
No.
For a lot of reasons. One, it's completely, it's pitch black. 2, you haven't slept very long. You need sleep. 3, what are you going to do at 3 in the morning? And you don't want to get up. But, for me, and again, this kind of, corresponding with becoming a head coach, it's like, well, here's your options. You can kind of lay there and toss and turn and, keep thinking about what you're thinking about, which is what I did for several years, long time. But at some point, this is when I was coaching at Texas, one of my mentors, Dr. Burrell, he gave me some advice. He said, I told him, because we're big into meditation, he and I both, and I said, well, I can't meditate early in the morning because that's when I have the most anxiety. And he said, well, that's exactly when you need to meditate then. And so what I started to do was if my mind woke me up at, say, like 4 in the morning, I'd just get up and do my meditation. I'd start my morning routine. And so now, my mind will wake me up at some point, usually not that early, but at some point before I actually need to get up. And then my morning routine it depends on what time I get up, and it depends on like the time of year, because one thing about living in Milwaukee, the sunrise is like vastly different based on the time of year. So as you guys are noticing, like the sun is coming up significantly later and later and later. And then we'll get to daylight savings time. It'll go back a little bit, but it's still much later than it was like in June. And so our mental skills coach, Russ Roush, he's taught me a lot. One of the best things that he's done for me is he taught me about circadian rhythms and morning light. And so let's say it was, June and the sun was coming up at 5 something and I woke up, then I would go outside right away and I just walk around. I'm fortunate to live by the lake. One of my favorite things about Milwaukee is Lake Michigan. And so just walking around, getting the sunlight in my eyes. For anyone that doesn't know about circadian rhythms and morning light, it can be really, really life-changing because it helps kind of reset the cells in your body and teach them that, hey, I'm awake now, so wake up. And that helps with regeneration and all the things that you want to occur in your body. So at some point I'm going outside, but if it's still dark, like now the sun's, I think it was about 6:20, 6:25 when the sun came up this morning. So I've been up for a while. So I do my meditation. I have a bunch of different books that I like to read from that I call my spiritual reading. I take a picture of it. I send it to the players. I send it to some other people, our staff. Just an excerpt from some of the stuff that I read. And I do the morning light, walking around, and I write in my journal. That's something that's been really good. And we've gotten the guys into journaling. So that's been really good. I write in my journal every morning.
What do you write about? So like what you want to do that day, or is it what you're thankful for?
I write about different things. When I'm in a good place, and I do tend to write about gratitude a lot, but it is it's mostly coaching stuff. So it's about our team, it's about our staff, it's about our practices, our games, recruiting, things that I've learned. I watch a lot of other coaches' press conferences, so maybe stuff that I learned from them. I felt like I was robbed last year at the end of football season when Nick Saban retired, because I really enjoyed like watching his press conferences. I like Mike Tomlin a lot. I watch all of his stuff. So I might, Tuesday or Wednesday, I watched Coach Tomlin's most recent press conference at like 5-something in the morning. And I just write down some of the stuff, quotes, different things that I'll take from that.
I want to know about your screen time, because we sat down and you immediately were like, let's put my phone off to the side. Like, what does that track at?
You know what, Grace, that's been it's been a journey, and it's kind of twists and turns. And, I think we all can relate to this. I mean, our phones have become so central to, so much that we do, whether it's listening to music or, the 30,000 apps that everyone has, the communication with the people that we love the most, the people that we depend on the most. And so it's like you need it. And something that you want to do, you can't do without your phone maybe. But at the same time, the phones in a lot of ways have become the worst of us too. And so the other day, it's a timely question, because the other day I was looking back. I have this blue little notebook. I have these little notebooks that are like mini journals. That one of them, my red one, this is something I recommend to people. I got this from a guy named Trevor Moad, who's a great mental skills and mental performance coach. Unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Trevor taught me this. Personal advertisement journal. So you know how like everywhere we go, there's ads, ads for everything, on your phone, watching TV, when you're driving on the highway. And Trevor's thing was, you need to write your own ads to yourself. How do you want to be? How do you want to act? What do you want to be? So I have this notebook that I wrote a long time ago. This is probably maybe 8 years ago. And, just go through it from time to time as a reminder of how I want to be. But then I have this little blue one, and that one's called my best version notebook. And I wrote that at some point when I was at Texas. So probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And there's a lot of things in there that I was saying at the time, I need to do better. And these are the things that I'm going to have to do to be a better version of myself. And so one of the things was like phone restrictions. And so I was reading through that the other day, and it was like glaring that was the one thing in there that I'm doing a very bad job of. And so started this thing recently, like last week, where I have a goal of at least 6 hours every day. This is not including when I'm asleep, that I'm physically away from my phone. And so I wanted to use this opportunity to be on the podcast with you guys. Like physically, I can't see my phone, I can't feel my phone, I can't hear my phone.
Yeah, you set a timer, didn't you? Or like you started a
Yeah.
stopwatch?
So when I get away from it, I put the timer on. And it's got to be in at least 30-minute blocks. Like it can't be like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And it's actually much harder to do when we don't have like practice that day. It's pretty easy, like if you have practice. But on a day like yesterday, I was on a recruiting trip, and was traveling a lot. But like you're traveling and you're like still looking at your phone and stuff, and it's okay. But no, it's a better day when you're not always near it.
Have you ever let your current players babysit anything? I don't know if you have a dog, but like.
Never have. My daughter's old enough now where she doesn't need a babysitter, but
would you?
Yeah, I would. I love dogs. Love dogs. Unfortunately, my wife and then my mother-in-law who lives with us, they're not huge dog people, so we don't have a dog. But yeah, I would let a player do that. But, you know, here's my thing. Like a lot of times over the years, players have wanted to get dogs. And my thing is like, you need to learn to take care of yourself first. But yeah, I would let a player.
A dog's a good amount of work.
A lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Kam Jones had a submitted question. How many text messages do you send per day?
I send a lot because, like I said, in the morning, that's part of my routine that I send an excerpt from my reading to a whole lot of people, all the guys on our team, all the guys that I coached at Marquette that aren't here anymore, a lot of former players, Texas, VCU, our staff, and then just a bunch of friends and a couple strays that I pick up a lot of strays. And I say that in a loving way, like just random people that all of a sudden we meet and, you know, have a conversation like this. And, hey, well, can you send that to me too?
I was just about to ask, to be honest, so I might have to find you after this, but I want to be a stray. Life goal.
But how many text messages in a day?
I mean, if we're counting group threads too, I'm sure a bunch of those go out to 10, 20 people at a time.
Most of them I send individually. I have a couple group texts to like staff, to some staff groups, but most of it's individual because, you know, I like the back and forth when they ask about, you know, what I sent. I mean, the other day I sent, you know, part of a poem from T.S. Eliot, his book, Four Chordats, and it was pretty deep. I mean, I had to read it many, many times. And, you know, these guys are like, our incoming guys, for example, the guys we're going to sign in 2025, they're like 17 years old. And they're like, what, Coach, tell me about that. Like, what is he saying? But it creates good conversation. I would say definitely in the triple digits text in a day.
Okay. Speaking of text, we did ask Kam about this last year. Apparently he sent you a romantic verse from a Drake song, Text Go Green. What was your initial reaction?
On accident.
He said it wasn't on accident on the podcast. He just thought it was a fire verse.
Well,
he said you thought it was intended to go to a woman. Can we hear it from the source?
Well, listen, Kam and I have a very unique relationship. He's a special kid. He has a really good way about him as a person. I definitely, with him only having 1 year left at Marquette, I encourage people to really get to know him as a person as much as you can, because he's one of those guys, if you don't like him, then there's something wrong with you. He has a great spirit. He does occasionally, so he texts me a lot. He probably texts me more than anyone on the team. He's a prolific texter for sure. He'll occasionally send me something that was intended for a lady friend, for sure. So that verse may or may not have been. We do share music a lot. And sometimes we'll share songs that are, you know, more like, you know, male, female songs, but it's just a good songs. Like, you know, we both like Rihanna. So, you know, there's a shared appreciation for some of that stuff, but he's a trip.
I agree. Big fan of that guy. We asked Stevie to submit some questions, and all he said was bet. And I think he forgot to get back to us. So how does that, as a coach, how does that make you feel, knowing that your star senior guard is so locked in that he did not have a couple minutes to send us a legitimate question to ask you?
Well, what it tells me is he's good at prioritizing, and that
in Milwaukee Uncut did not make Stevie Mitchell's priority.
I wouldn't take that personally to Milwaukee Uncut. I put that more onto me because he's probably near the bottom in terms of writing me back too.
All right.
Stevie is as close as we have to Superman. Now, there's no such thing as a real Superman because that's a movie or a cartoon. So, but Stevie, for example, literally this is like Clark Kent. Like he this past summer would get up early in the morning, do his extra shooting, his extra work, do his lift with his teammates, and then shower and change and put on a nice outfit. And he would go downtown to Baird, where he had an internship, and he would work all day, and then he would get done, and then we'd come back, and he would change back into, athletic gear, and he would work out some more, and he would, get his shots up and, compete with the guys on the court. And so while he's doing all these things, he doesn't have time for lowly things like coming up with fan questions for me.
That makes sense. He's going to go on to do some great things in life.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, he's going to be a much bigger success off the court than really any of our guys probably will be on the court. The hard thing is, and I can relate to this because when I was their age, I was the same way. The identity that they take on internally is as a basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was me. When I was their age, I carried a ball around campus. People looked at me like I was nuts because I played Division III. Like, it's not like I was at Marquette. And I was just a basketball junkie. It was just everything. That's just who I was or who I thought I was. I think the biggest part of the journey, not to get away from the fun questions, but the biggest part of the journey for all of us is learning who you are. But first you have to learn who you're not. And, that's going to be part of it for Stevie and all of our guys.
Grace, why don't you hop down to Andrew's question?
Yeah.
And for those listening, Kam and Stevie do have their podcast, K1 and Stewie Show, and you should check that out.
Definitely. Great episode with Shaka on there as well.
Yeah.
If you could have one Marquette legend back for one season, who would it be?
One Marquette legend back.
Any past player.
And you're saying he's playing on our team?
Playing.
That's easy. I mean, you should probably ask the question other than Dwayne Wade.
Okay, I was going to do a 1A. All right, let's go second pick because I think this is where it gets interesting.
But yeah, we want to hear someone else.
Second pick. Are we adding him to this year's team or this is
you're adding him to this year's squad.
Generally. Okay, so to this year's team, and we could add any player
other than D Wade.
Oh man. There's so many great players out there. Well, I'll tell you, we're really, really trying to take on a mentality, and you guys are the first people I'm telling publicly about this, of being a bunch of goons out on the floor. And I'll let our guys define that for you. So, you give me Jarrell McNeil, you give me Jay Crowder, obviously Jimmy. But, Jarrell, you put him on our team right now with the guys that we have, that'd be a lot of fun.
Jarrell McNeil, that was my guy. I was at Marquette from 2007 to 11, so named a bunch of guys from my era. I like that pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's special.
That's a goon, I guess. We'll have to figure out what that means.
He was a goon. I mean,
Dude, he could fill it up.
On the Prey video that is played in the arena right before the game, it's so fun watching like the former players. And I mean, these guys are dudes. Like it's like Jay and Travis and Jimmy. But the best one is Jarrell. And he says, "You will know that today is not your day." And it's like, yes, like, I want that guy on my team.
There's nothing like that video. I love that video. Should we do barbecue or you want to skip it?
Yeah, very quick. You've coached in 2 great barbecue regions previously. Any good barbecue spots around Milwaukee that you like?
Barbecue spots. Well, I'm going to give you a few restaurants. I thought you guys might ask me.
Yeah.
So I thought about this actually this morning when I was walking around.
See.
I really like a place called Daddy's, which is a soul food place. And sometimes we'll get food from there and bring it into the facilities. It's in Milwaukee. It's not far from campus. So soul food, Daddy's. I like Elsa's a lot. Great vibe in there. Just a good group of people in there, good feeling in there, good menu. And then there's a place called Maxie's that I took Stevie and some of the guys to this summer. There was just like a random day when there really wasn't much going on, and some of our guys were not in town, and some of them were. And we went over there, and man, they got good food. So those are three I really like.
I like this one from Aaron Wago Wagrins. Who would your NIL sponsor have been at Kenyon College?
I wouldn't have had an NIL sponsor.
Well, come on, hypothetically.
My NIL sponsor. Well, when I was in college, it was the 90s. And at that point, I was real big on wearing, I don't know what the politically correct term for it is, but, basically the plain white tank tops.
Yes.
And so I wore those a lot. So whatever brand, whether it's Hanes or whoever it is, that would have been my, name.
Rocking the beaters around campus.
Yeah. But again, Kenyon College, I don't know that anyone playing basketball there takes on enough meaning.
I was just curious if Shaka got an NIL deal, what it would have been back in the day, and what the money would have been spent on.
Since you mentioned
just on Subway tank tops, Jordans, where would the money have gone?
Food. I was broke in college. I mean, I tell the guys this, and they don't really understand because it's a different world. But I distinctly remember, this happened multiple times, having the same $2 or $3 in my backpack. I had this red backpack in the front pocket, $3, and being scared to spend it because I didn't know when I might really need it. At that point, in college, you kind of ate breakfast and lunch and dinner in the dining hall, and that was, not something you were spending money on. So if I had more money, I would have spent more money on food for sure.
Follow-up question I forgot to ask you earlier. You go from having $3 in your pocket to thinking you're rich when you get a $24,000 salary to signing a 7-figure a year deal at VCU. What was it like signing that first major contract with that much money coming in?
Well, actually, I didn't sign a contract like that until we went to the Final Four. My first contract was, it was good, but it was, coaches make a lot more than that now. I mean,
but still, even going from $24,000 a year to whatever in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, well, I'm about $90 every 2 weeks when I was a GA.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've always, when I was a kid, we were poor. I thought we were, but I was always happy, and it wasn't like I attached, money to happiness. Now, that I remember distinctly as a kid, wishing I had certain things. When I turned 16, I took on the grocery shopping responsibilities for our family because I got my driver's license. And my mom would give me $120 to get all the groceries for 2 weeks. And we went to Woodman's, which is a chain you've probably heard of in Wisconsin. And I would go to Woodman's, and I was good at math. So I would add up the price of everything, and I would have to keep it under $120. And this is for 2 weeks. So I couldn't buy the good orange juice. I couldn't buy the good, steaks or, the good poultry. The stuff I was buying was like the 10-cent frozen canisters of orange juice where you added water. So I remember distinctly as a kid, hey, when I get enough money and I'm an adult, I'm going to buy the good orange juice. I'm going to keep my house or apartment at a reasonable temperature. I remember being a kid, my mom used to turn the heat down to 59 degrees at night. I hated that. It was to save money. But to answer your question, I mean, it really doesn't change you. I have a wife and daughter. They probably get mad at me saying this, but they probably make most of the decisions as it relates to the spending of money. I spend a lot of money on food because I like to eat, the right things.
Yeah.
But, this is what I wear. I actually don't even wear suits anymore to games like we used to.
Kind of nice.
Oh, it's way better because the way that I move around.
I never got that.
Yeah, it's coaches take themselves too seriously sometimes, and so I don't think anyone really cares. But it's great for me because I could just move around better wearing what I wear.
I would love to know how many calories you burn in a game. It's got to be crazy.
Oh yeah, you track that at all?
You're fully in the game.
I do not.
More than the players?
No, I don't burn more than that. And these
Are
guys,
you sure? You're out there.
I try to lead the team in floor slaps.
You do a good job.
But Stevie's up there.
Bunch of people asked about the Madison game coming up this year. One guy chimed in that I think it's been 1,300 days since we've beat Madison as Marquette, and people are fired up about that. How are we feeling? Is that circled on the calendar at all, or is it just another game?
I'm going to give you a Bill Belichick quote. Today's practice is circled on the calendar. I love the fact that there's great interest in a rivalry, and, it'll be an awesome environment. It always is, whether it's at their place or at our place. Trust me, nobody's more aware of, recent results than I am or our players are. I mean, those guys, they get reminded. But I think the thing for people to remember is nobody wants to win more than us. I can promise you that. Nobody spends the time thinking and pouring into what goes into winning that our players and our coaches do. So it's not like let's do more. We're going to do everything that we can do already, whether it's been however many days or whether it's been one day. But it'll be a great opportunity. They've got a really good program, and I think it's terrific for the state that there's a rivalry that people really care about. We'll be excited.
Well, thank you so much for coming down today. Thanks for all you do for Marquette, and good luck this season.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and great job with the podcast.